we end up skating. Um, and he can ride, he can cruise for sure. You know what I mean? He can do a couple grinds. He doesn't do any flip tricks or anything, but he can pop and like ride, which is all you really need for a mini ramp.
Is that really where grinding came from? Is that like the real sub story? Is it? It's not
No,
about.
no, you know
It's
what it
not
is. I'm
about.
not gonna go into detail about that, but you know what it is. And if you don't know, you better educate yourself.
Hey,
Hey, what's up, man? Sorry, my setup was not working great. Can you hear me okay?
yeah, man, I hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Are you outside, homie?
Yeah, man.
What are you
Yeah,
doing out
man.
there?
Social distance, like, whatever this is. It's funny is I had a lot of last minute changes and everything like that caused me to change locations, and so I was rushing over, and I wanted to make sure that I came out and supported HearRVA and all that stuff. I love you guys. But yeah, my setup was getting kind of wonky, and I was like, let me just throw on the AirPods and just do it this way. But yeah, I'm outside. This is where I do my whiskey club once a month, and there's going to be a couple guys that will come in and out and everything. But right now, it's just me outside. Good
Wait.
weather. You might as well enjoy it, right?
You said you have a whiskey club, my dude? Hold on,
It's
you can't just say that and then back away.
we meet up once a month to just drink good whiskey. And actually, I brought two bottles tonight. So I brought the Jane Walker, which I was sipping on the other night, and then I brought the Basil Hayden. It's crazy. This was on sale for like I think $25, and it's only like I think like a $40 bottle or whatever. So I was like, man, I got to pick it up. So
So what's the go-to for the whiskey club? Like what is your choice? Is there like a consensus for the group?
everyone loves Japanese whiskey, um, which is cool. I don't hate it. I'm unfamiliar with it. I like American bourbon. My go-to is Blanton's, which everyone clowns me on. They say it's like terrible, but it's ranked top five in every bourbon list I've ever looked at. But I don't know how familiar you are with whiskey or anything like that.
Not very. What's like Japanese whiskey? What's the difference?
Um, you know, Japanese whiskey is fairly new. Like I think it's kind of become a thing within the last 50 to I don't want to say 100 years. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but they're just like everything else Japan does. Like they learn about it, they make sure they get great at it, and it's always amazing. Like there hasn't been a Japanese whiskey that I've been disappointed. I just like the sweetness of American bourbon. So
Uh,
yeah,
so okay, so you bring up how the Japanese almost have they always think long term. I think that's like a very like Eastern philosophy is like you can think when you build a company, you're building it for like 200 years later. You know what I mean? Like you're building infrastructure.
right, right.
Um, that doesn't seem to be the case on the west side of the world. Like what kind of things can we draw from that when we're creating music? Like how can we build more for long term instead of just like a one hit pop kind of flash viral moment?
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I have the right answer for that. I'll tell you that like it's odd, right? Because you're watching Korea kind of crush it right now in the pop sense
Yeah.
with everything. And I mean, where it's even foreign to me because I listen to a lot of just kind of current hip hop and a lot of current rock and things like that. And, I don't even want to say current. I feel like at times I'm kind of dated now because I've hit that point where I enjoy what I like listening to and I listen to those artists and you're seeing their numbers not do as well as they may have once did. But I think that's the beautiful thing about music and art in general, right? Um, it's always kind of transcendent of time. And um, I get why the cool dads aren't as cool as they used to be, right? Like, and it's always the stepdads that are cooler, you know?
Always the stepdads.
Yeah. If you if you think about it, like, um, this is so weird. I don't even know why I brought that up. Like, where it's kind of like you're trying to win over the kid if you're dating a mom with the kid, right?
Okay.
Um, and then you want to be hip to whatever the kid's into. Um, and I say this speaking of just films I've watched in Hollywood. I don't know what it's like. I've
You don't
never.
got no stepdad experience?
No, but I'm at the age where I feel like I'm gonna probably be a stepdad versus like. I mean, I'm 32. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure, sure.
um, at this point, I don't know. That's weird. I don't even know why I'm saying all that stuff. I'm not
Nah,
against
man.
it though. Hey, single moms.
Hey, man, sometimes you gotta shoot your shot. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's some single moms watching right now.
Yeah, man. But I don't know. I just feel like music overall is it's a little always a little bit before the times, right? Like man, there was an artist I was listening to earlier, and I was just thinking it's so wild how they've blown up. I forget who I was listening to earlier. I was kind of going through a rotation. I'm going back to the studio. I'm actually going back to Richmond on Saturday
Okay.
to just kind of do some layering on this new project I was doing, and I was trying to draw some influence from some current sounds and everything. But yeah, like it's funny how some of these artists like blow up to be big, or even if they aren't huge, they're well recognized within the industry, right? Like for example, I grew up um, loving Kenna, who is like a Virginia Beach artist, and his whole thing was wild because he was always featured on stuff where it was like, um, he the craziest thing for me was when I I watched him and he did an HP commercial where it was like those commercials where like you didn't see the person's head but you saw the body, and they had all these graphics with their hands, and
Yeah, yeah. I think I remember you
um
talking about, yeah.
and then he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro on MTV with Lupe Fiasco, and it's like people don't know anything about him in the US. He's on PlayStation commercials, and but no one knew about him. People in Europe cared about him a fair amount, but you know, he was my favorite artist for a long time. And it's just crazy because he's done so much work, and you see like um, the things he's been involved in. Supposedly, he helped broker the deal with Ethos Water, like the water that they sell at Starbucks or something, because he's from Ethiopia, and that's how they got the 5 cents for each bottle. I don't know how true that is, but these are just things I've kind of heard in passing, and I don't know. It's just wild.
Okay, so I want to get back to that, but I just remember we have not even introduced you. We jumped right
Oh,
into
my
Whiskey
bad,
Club.
man. My bad.
No,
I'm just been
hey,
rambling.
no, bro. Look, it's all good, but I want to introduce you to the people that are watching that may not know you. I appreciate your fans that have jumped on for this. But you are Tunan Vu. You are a singer-songwriter who has lived in Virginia Beach. You went to ODU. I think you live up in Northern Virginia now, but I know that when you were in college, you got an internship working with a very cool, influential Virginia worldwide hip hop group called Clipse. You guys may have heard of them. You
Right,
toured with them. You got to perform at Shagfest and open up for Pharrell with your band
right.
and do your. You have been all over the place. Performed at the Norva. You've done. Yeah, I mean, yo, that's one of the spots. People like the Norva's the spot. I don't care.
It is. It is.
It is. You've done Mr. Viet Fest. Like you
Oh my
have.
gosh.
Yo, bro, I went back on my research, bro.
Yeah, you really did.
Um, but what I really like about you and your music
Right.
is that you take it seriously without taking it seriously. You know what I mean? Like you do a good job and you keep it how it's supposed to sound in your brain, but your lyrics are playful. You allow yourself to be silly at times, which I think takes a lot of bravery when you're writing song lyrics. And so I
Thank
really
you.
do appreciate that, and I like that about you. But okay, with that being said, now I want to go back to what you were talking about people having love outside of their hometown and like why it doesn't translate in that incubator that made them. You know what I mean? Like people don't grow up in Virginia Beach and then sound like Virginia Beach without having cultivated something there. But for whatever reason, everybody's hometown kind of sleeps on them. I feel like people from Richmond don't really
Right.
know about how much talent's here in Richmond. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what we're doing here at HearRVA
I
is
would
promoting
agree.
that.
Right. No, no, I agree completely. Sorry, I got a little breezy. I'm gonna put my jacket on.
Drink more
But
whiskey, it'll warm you up.
exactly. Um, but No, I agree completely. It's funny because I feel like growing up in Virginia Beach, out of my group of friends, I was the one guy that never wanted to leave Virginia Beach. I always loved Virginia Beach. I always wanted to stay there. I always felt like um, that was the place to be. And I remember talking to No Malice, and he said, I'm not knocking anyone that leaves Virginia Beach to go to New York or LA.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's definitely opportunities there, right? But if you find it challenging to make music here,
Mm-hmm.
how do you expect yourself to make it out in LA or New York, right? Because like being from Virginia Beach, it's awkward. Um, this is just my opinion, but if you think about the Virginia Beach sound, there is no sound. You just know
Right.
it's very all over the place and it's a bit chaotic and everything like that. Um, but the thing about it is that because of like how transient it is, similar to like the DMV, and honestly, if you think about like Richmond, um, where it's very eclectic, right?
Yeah.
There's no way to pinpoint things exactly to one thing, right? Like if you think about hair metal in the 80s and how Skid Row was a big thing, and not just then, like you talk about the Beatles, like there was like I think like a whole thing with John Lennon and Ringo Starr just getting trashed on Skid Row all the time, but there was a definitive sound, like that was rock, right?
Yeah.
Like you think about Virginia Beach, Richmond, and DC, where I feel like it's very transient,
Yeah.
and you definitely know the sound, but you can't pinpoint it, and it makes a lot of sense. So I don't know. I just kind of think that I love Virginia Beach. I was very heartbroken when I left. Um, but I found comfort in moving to the DMV area. I'm just outside DC and like the Maryland side,
Okay.
but I find the same similarities because a lot of people with Virginia Beach is the military. In DC, it's a lot of people wanting to find like government and corporate jobs. You're finding a lot of young liberal-minded people who um, want to engage in trying to create change for the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, through those opportunities, they either go back to their hometown or pursue other opportunities to really expand on those thoughts. And so it feels very comfortable here, even though it's odd. I had to learn what mumbo sauce was, you know?
Did you learn?
I did. And my friend DJ Nam, uh, I told him I had mumbo sauce at a restaurant or mumbo wings at a restaurant and I didn't like it. He's like, well, you didn't go to the right place. And I said, what do you mean? He said, was there an inch of bulletproof glass? And was there at a Chinese takeout spot? And I said, no,
Yeah,
it
there you go.
wasn't. And he said, I bet you didn't pay cash either. And I said, I didn't. So he took me to a spot like outside of University of Maryland. He said this is his favorite spot. And he said, really, this is like the outskirts and the cusp of where you're allowed to get like mumbo wings. And I learned that day.
Brothers
It's as good
territory.
as everyone says it is. I mean,
Yeah.
you're a Nova guy, right? Like
Yeah,
you know
for
what it's
sure.
about.
I definitely spent my time in DC up there getting the stuff, and yeah, it's great food. But I think you're right about DC, that DMV area, Richmond and Virginia
Right,
Beach, just really being like an inflection point for the country. You know what I mean? Like we're not southity south and we're not northity north, and so
right.
like we get a little bit of everything. You know what I mean? I know people that grew up here loving like New York hip hop, but at the same time like thumping Lil Jon, and it was like how do those two things really balance? And they don't in a lot of places, but I think they do here in Virginia.
Yo, Nico's a clown. Nico's one of my favorite rappers right now. He's out in the Waldorf area. He said you better learn. He's out in Waldorf and everything like that, but he's hip. I mean, I consider Waldorf pretty much DMV area, anyways. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yo, Nico, what's the mumbo sauce place, man? You got to drop that in there if you got the haps, man. Um, but Tunon, I want to talk about your last project, Listen Katrina.
yes. Let
Came
me pull
out.
the bunny in. Let me pull the bunny
Oh, please, yeah, you got visual aids, my dude. You get an A.
in.
You brought visual aids, man. I love it. Yeah, that's fantastic. So Listen Katrina was a 4-song EP that you put out last year.
Right.
And not only did you, you know, create and write the songs, but you created like these small vignettes for each song as you rolled out your project. What kind of led you to do that kind of rollout, and why the bunny with the butterfly wings?
Man, this is going to be another long-winded thing. I just ramble on, and I apologize ahead of time.
No, you're good. By the way, Nico says Jeremy Yums, by the way.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
Nico, we're going to have to catch up over that. Real quick, give me 1 second. Hey, Wing, I got a bunch of gizzards over here, too, so help yourself to it. Yeah, no doubt. Appreciate that. But, yeah, so to your question, like, Listen Katrina is actually really, the title itself is hilarious because, like, the concept of the EP was for me to write a project that let my exes know, like, hey, you're right. I'm not a bad person, but I'm not a great person. Like, there are things that I really needed to work on, and I understand it now. And so the concept with the bunny, it's actually a Richmond artist named Ryan Lytle. Awesome guy. I recommend checking out his artwork. He's in galleries all over the U.S. and everything like that. But I asked him originally if I could, you know, just take a picture with the bunny and everything to use as the cover art.
Uh-huh.
And he thought I was asking to just use the photo he'd used. And I was like, no, I would like to take my own photos. And he said, that doesn't even exist because his art is just so popular. It just moves like that. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer. And then he ended up liking my music, and we worked something out where he could give me a piece. And it's wild. This is like, I think the smallest one that he has. They're actually a lot bigger.
How big did they go?
I think there's one that's the same size as how tall I am. I'm like 5'7", 5'8". Like they're big art pieces, and like they're made with metal wire, and then he hand dyes all of it, and just creates. I saw a studio. It's amazing. I mean, I can't imagine seeing what it's like in a studio setting. I definitely got to see what it's like behind the scenes, but it's just incredible. But anyways, the project, the whole concept was me writing to exes, just saying, you know, you're right in a lot of aspects, but I just want you to know I'm trying to grow to become a better person. And so the concept with the bunny and why it related so much and why I reached out to Ryan was because you're getting this bunny, which is a very, in my eyes, like kind of pure innocent thing. You've got very vibrant colors, which I think is very reflective of the women that I've dated and everything like that. This is not about one single person. And in some aspects, it's not completely truthful. There's aspects of fiction to it as well.
Yeah. Right.
But the reason why I really like the butterfly wings on the ears, and this is not a reflection of Ryan, this is only a reflection of me and how I interpret his art, was this is their way of fleeing away and fleeting, but also leaving me something memorable to remember by this message, and that's unforgettable, right?
Yeah.
So that was the whole concept of the bunny. Song one, Swoon, is just about being cavalier after a breakup and being so sure that you're going to find someone just as good, if not better.
Right. Because it clearly wasn't your fault.
It clearly wasn't my fault at all, right? Song two is, you know, that moment where you're kind of finding value in yourself again and kind of thinking like, well, I am worthy, even though it's not working out, but I know my self-worth at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
Song three actually is very interesting. I wrote it when I was 17. It was about someone specific that I had a crush on since I was a sophomore in high school, and then senior year she finally gave me a chance to date her, and then we dated for a while. It didn't work out, mostly because she was insecure about the feeling of me being on tour, right? Mm-hmm. Even though there was no acts of infidelity or anything like that. I didn't do enough to give her that security and that certainty. So I don't want to say that it was on my side. I don't want to say it was on her side. It was just kind of one of those things where we hit a crossroads, and unfortunately, we didn't go down the same path. Um, and then song 4 was just, it's funny. It's the chillest song, but it's a song about getting inebriated and having a one night stand, which I've never experienced, but I'll tell you, like, it's funny the comments that I've gotten, the feedback that I've gotten from everyone and everything about these songs. But so that's my songs in a summary. I've kind of lost track a bit of the questions, and
Okay,
again, it
me
was
too.
long-winded.
I got another question based
Sure,
on
sure.
that. Yeah. So you're creating and you're dealing with a lot of these topics on this EP that, you know, it takes a lot of honesty to have that kind of self-reflection and see where your faults are, where you didn't do your part, where you need to grow.
Right.
And I feel like with any situation, you can take that kind of self-criticism as a positive, as a place to grow, or you can really like beat yourself up on it, right?
For
Um,
sure.
and I kind of like how you approached it in this EP because you did layer a little bit of humor on top of it, like a little bit of like sarcasm. And so
Right.
I, I wanted to get your take, like how close is drama and comedy? Is it on the same coin? Is it really just perspective? Like if I fall and bang my knee, is it really funny to everybody until I get hurt or until it's me? You know what I'm saying? Like the same thing can be funny and sad at the same time, just depending on how you look at it.
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. It's very complicated, because, like, fortunately, unfortunately, I find everything funny. Um, Maybe not in that moment, but definitely when you look back. But a lot of times things are funny to me up front,
Yeah.
where not because, like, okay, so let's say like you bang your knee, it's like not funny that you hurt yourself, but it's funny thinking about the incidents that led up to that point, right?
Yeah.
And it gets later on that side. But then there's like, so here's a funny thing about my project. It's called Listen Katrina. Um, and why is it called Katrina? It's called Katrina because the syllables fit when I wrote swoon, right? Um, and unfortunately, I lost a friendship over it. Like, I had someone reach out to me, a friend of mine that for a short stint we were close years ago, and every now and then we'd probably touch base maybe once a year, right?
Mhm.
Um, and at the time, I just released the cover art and the name of my record. She'd reached out to me and said, "Why is it called Listen Katrina?" I said, uh, "It's just what worked." And she said, are these songs about me? I said, "No, they're not about you." And she said, "I don't, in a sense, I don't believe you." I thought we were joking, right? So I sent, I think her name's Carly Simons, "You're So Vain," and thinking like, oh, you know who I am. We've been friends for a while. We'll laugh about this.
Oh.
She found nothing funny about it, and ended up like deleting me and all this stuff, and
Oh,
didn't
bro.
hear anything. But like,
Oh.
on my side, it wasn't that I was trying to leave her hanging or anything like that, and I didn't want to follow up. It was because during that time I was getting a lot of messages, people telling me that like they're excited for the project, they're excited for all this other stuff, and I'm trying to message everybody at once. But by that point, she'd removed me, and I was like, oh man, like
Dang.
it didn't need to be that serious. But being who I am, I look at that, I'm like, how ridiculous and absurd is that situation?
Yeah.
I hope I can cross paths with her in person so we can talk about it better, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not one to burn bridges. Maybe I was in the past, but I'm not that person now, where it's kind of like you understand the value of everybody, even if you can't get along with everyone, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so to answer your question and circle back, yeah, like, um, I think there's a lot of humor in life, and sometimes we take ourselves too seriously.
Man, I agree, man. I think that's an important message, and yeah, I just wanted to get your take on that. Now, I know that, well, I've heard through the grapevine that you are working on some new music and that you are coming down to Richmond. Where do you record at when you come down here?
I recorded with Will Beasley. You know, I don't even know his studio name or anything like that.
Okay.
Um, Will is one of my favorite people to record with. He's just got a very unique approach where I think that he and I just always see eye to eye on everything, where it's kind of like I'll come in with like this great idea and I swear it's a great idea, and I get in the studio and he'll tell me like, hey, this is a terrible idea. And I'm like, you know what? I agree.
Okay.
But it works on the opposite side too, where I'm like, hey, I got this idea. I'm very uncertain about it. I want to add this part. And he was like, wait, why didn't we add this earlier? This is like the best thing to add to it. I'm like, man, I was feeling that way, but I don't know. So it's almost like getting that reassurance on everything, right? And he's got a band called Wild Truth that just released a record that's surprisingly, and not that I doubt him, just surprisingly amazing, because he records a lot of pop punk bands and metal bands. And I would say his music is like kind of on par with like Muse, where it's like very melodic. In some aspects, he's gonna hate me for saying this. I've never told him this, but it reminds me of like the latest Jonas Brothers record also,
Okay.
because it's just so likable and rhythmic and awesome. And you wouldn't think about that from the bands that he records, but he's also recorded like country artists and hip hop artists and things like that. Um, but yeah, no, I love Richmond. I love going out there to record. It's a lot of fun out there.
And I mean, like, what kind of project are we talking about with you? Are you thinking like an EP, or are we doing like a full length? Do you have
It's
any
gonna
idea yet?
it's gonna be another 4 song project. I think what I love most about this project is you're getting my sarcasm still,
Mhm.
but it's a lot more serious. I'm not sure people are ready for that. But it was kind of a reflection of 2020. Um, I tried to rekindle things with an ex, and honestly, it was very fruitful until it wasn't. And I say that um, because I don't I read that there's like a high divorce rate in 2020 because people are spending more time with their spouses and stuff like that.
Mhm.
For us, I think we realized a lot about ourselves, where we kind of came to a realization that we're not good together, but we don't hate each other. I'll talk to her from time to time, but it was still uncomfortable and it kind of made me insane.
Mhm.
I started seeking therapy and all this stuff, and it's been a while since I've gone to therapy. I mean, I used to see it pretty regularly and everything like that, but I started my therapy, I think, beginning of August. I'm
Mhm.
still seeing it now. And not that things are wild in my life, but there's this kind of comfort that I'm trying to find within myself, right?
Okay.
Um, but so this record is about that. I mean, if I'm going to summarize each song briefly, um, the first song is about me kind of accepting my dad's. My dad passed away shortly before, or yeah, shortly before my 8th birthday, and me not embracing that event fully, um, because I've always looked at death as really a celebration.
Okay.
Someone going on to the next life, and that's how I've always explained it to people. But um, I think I was able to kind of embrace all the emotions involved. The second song, I started watching anime, which is not a thing that I do, but I wrote a song about anime, one specific one, which I'll describe more in the future.
Okay.
The third song is about how you see somebody that you're maybe not the closest with anymore, but you're still trying to be polite. And then the last song is about my therapy sessions. Um, but yeah, so it's cool. I mean, it, it's
Yeah.
just that.
I'm excited to hear it, bro. Um, now, so before Listen Katrina, you had like a 7-year gap of you like putting out full release music.
Right.
And I'd heard you talk, because I did my research like we found out earlier. I'd heard you talk that like things were going well for you in your professional career. Like you had
Right.
some security. Did you find the security to be more sedative or freeing in your creative exploits? Because I feel like it can do both.
Yeah. So when I was living in Virginia Beach, I was running a restaurant. Um, and it was awesome because I could just take the days off I wanted to. And
Hmm.
there's a Vietnamese restaurant, which I'm very tied into the Vietnamese community here.
Right.
And that's one of the big things I love about living in the DMV area. Um, but it was weird, right? You do this tug and pull where for me with my music, it's not that I don't want to have music as a profession, but I'm not counting on it.
Sure.
Like I really do music these days as an outlet for me to express myself and just make sure that I maximize on whatever outlets I can because I have the experience prior, right?
Hmm.
Um, I mean, you can look at my numbers and my views; they're not off the chain, but they're also, I think, better than what some other people may have. But it's not a competition. It's just I want to do quality work all the time from start to finish, whatever it takes, right? Um, so doing what I do now, and I work in finance, what I realized was working in such a structured environment, you go insane, especially if you have the creative mind. And although I love the security it presents itself, um, I just need to let loose and go wild. And sometime like that 1 week vacation isn't enough.
Right.
So like if you look at my schedule, I take a lot of like extended weekends so that I can take multiple trips and things like that because um, I need the opportunity to just be free. Um, I don't knock anyone that decides to grind it out, but I also don't knock anyone who decides to work the 9 to 5 grind to have the platform to do what they want on the weekends.
Sure.
And that's what I'm doing. And it's worked for me, but I understand why it can't work for everyone because definitely when I get off work, I feel a little crazy sometimes.
As we all do, man. Yeah, I think you get to a certain point and it's like, all right, I either have to build my own thing or accept that I am a cog in this wheel. You know what I mean? And pimp it to my
Oh,
advantage.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, no. Definitely.
Um,
Definitely.
well, before we go, my own personal question, because man, I grew up such a huge fan of Clipse,
Yeah,
and
let's talk about it. I'm
bro,
excited to talk about it,
bro,
man.
let's talk about it because matter of fact, that's the name of a song they did. Talk about it. But so
Oh,
I
Heather told me to take a sip. I got
okay.
you, Heather. I'm sorry. Heather's been helping me with the business aspect of things, and I got to give a shout out to her. And she's calling me out because I probably look ridiculous. She hates this shirt right
I like that
now.
shirt. I love it. I counterbalance her vote. But shout out to Heather for joining. Thank you very much. Um, you became an intern for them. How the hell did that happen? And then you're touring with them. You know
Right.
you just kind of become friends with them at some point. Like what happened? How did that start?
It's really funny. So I really started playing music in the scene when I was around 12. My first gig was at a bar show. And I remember I thought I was like hot shit because I went to the bartender in the daytime. This was like my friend's grandmother owned this like hole in the wall bar in Virginia Beach. And I don't know if I've ever told this story. And I want to say it just because it sounds so ridiculous. But um, she gave us a spot to play at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday.
It's a
And
good time
I
spot.
Right, great time slot. Just a bunch of middle school kids like
Yeah.
hanging out at this bar, right?
Hell
And
yeah.
I walked up and I was like, "Hey, I'll take a Shirley Temple, extra grenadine," right? Like I was
Yeah.
just so sure of myself. So, anyways, like I played that show, and I think that was the moment I was hooked on music. But since then, like I'd always played in rock bands and things like that since middle school. And when I was playing these shows in high school, I met this guy named Show Me Patwari. Um, Show Me's a big deal in Virginia Beach, and if you don't know him or know of him, you're really not hip to like the music industry. I mean, you're laughing because you know who I'm talking about, right?
No,
Like,
I don't. But
you
I love the
don't?
fact that you're telling. No, no.
Oh my gosh! Wait, Ryan hasn't told you? Ryan
She
is
don't
your
know nothing
significant
about
other?
music.
No, Ryan. I'm sure Ryan knows who Show Me is. So Show Me like had this multimedia company called Elusive Media. He used to come out to all these shows I'd play at. Not for me, but just the bands I was playing because he was like, um, you know, was really cool with them and everything. And I remember like it was somebody's birthday and we ate at some Chinese buffet. And I was like, hey, Show Me, like it was my freshman year of college. I was like, I just want to ask you like if there's anything I can do to kind of like get connected in the industry. I'd love to do it. At this time, I just switched my major in college from biology to music business, and it was a big deal because um, I was in this bridge program for ODU where I would finish all my science classes, and after 2 years, I'd go straight to optometry school and become a doctor within like 5 years total.
Okay.
And I said, forget it. I'm gonna just um, pursue music. Like this is what I like. Change majors, and I had this talk with Show Me and everything. And Show Me was like, well, let's connect. Let's link up. So I spent like my whole summer taking out trash at his like media studio, grabbing lunch and all this stuff. And I did it for a while. I'd say like almost a year. And then I was like, hey, man, like at some point I need to get connected to some of these artists that you're bringing in. Now, when I say this stuff, like he was bringing in like obviously Clipse, Pharrell, Chad Hugo. I never met Timbaland with him or anything like that, but like he was doing work for Tim, he was doing stuff for Magoo, and um, it was just wild. Like he was working with May, which was like this indie rock band that I loved, and what ended up happening was shortly after, I kind of pressed him about it a little bit, where I was like, "Hey, man, I just want to reiterate where I want to go with this. There's like not an established music industry scene, even though there's a lot of music industry people or artists out here." And he's like, "All right." And he called me up a week later, and he was like, "Hey, man, meet me at the studio. Um, I had this conversation with Malice, and he wants to meet up with you." And I was like, "All right." So
No, I don't.
you
I
know,
don't want
like
that meeting. Mm-mm.
like you also have to understand I got kicked out of my house day after graduation from high school,
Oh wow.
so I was always on my grind from like day one kind of thing where I slept in my car for 2 weeks. I didn't know where I was gonna like be at, how I was gonna eat and everything. And the only reason why I even found a place to live was because my friend's family, shout outs to Justin Robinson and all that, J Rob. um, he found out that I was living in my car and was like, no, like you're gonna stay with me. Talk to his mom and like got me to a place where I was comfortable for the summer until I started college, right?
Mhm.
Um, but anyways, the timeline got a little wonky. I'm sorry, but what ended up happening was like he was like, "Yeah, meet me at the studio." Let's say it was like 2 o'clock or something, right? So I show up at the studio at 2 o'clock. Mouse doesn't show up until like 2:30, maybe 3 o'clock, and I'd met him once before, um, working for Show Me, but we never really talked. I just met him.
Mhm.
And what ended up happening was he like Show Me and No Mouse were just talking about design work. And I said, "Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt." I think it was like 4 o'clock at this point. I was like, "I got to go to work," like at like my part-time job, right? And he was like, "Oh, word." And he's like, "Oh, by the way, this is that Vietnamese kid that I was telling you about. He's got good work ethic. Like, he knows um, what to do, and he's a good guy." And I was like, "Oh, cool. Where you work at?" And I was like, "I work at a skate shop called Hotline." And he was like, "Cool. Well, let's exchange numbers. I got a mini ramp in my garage. Let's skate." And I
Nice.
was like, "What?" So we exchanged numbers, and then like I think like a few days later or a week later, we end up skating. Um, and he can ride, he can cruise for sure. You know what I mean? he can do a couple grinds. He doesn't do any flip tricks or anything, but he can pop and like ride, you know, which is all you really need for a mini rig.
Is that really where grinding came from? Is that like the real sub story? It's not
No,
about,
no, you know what it is.
about...
I'm not gonna go into detail about that, but you know what it is. And if you don't know, you better educate yourself. Breaking Bad is a TV show. But yeah, so it was really funny because like what ended up happening was we were skating, hanging out, and then you know, he asked me, like we're chilling after our skate session, we're sitting on the top of the mini ramp. He goes, "Hey man, can I ask you a question?" I was like, "Sure." He said, "Do you believe in Jesus?" And I said, "Yeah." Or I'm sorry. He asked, "Are you a Christian?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "So does that mean that you believe in Jesus?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "You want to grab some burgers?" I was like, "This is so weird." But he told me like how his kind of reestablishing of faith was coming about and everything like that. And we got really close. And to this day, we still talk and hang out and everything like that. But really, Show Me kind of gave me the layup on it. And the way I went on tour the first time with them was because Show Me couldn't go on tour. They needed someone to do behind the scenes footage. And Show Me recommended me to go on tour. And a week later, I was on the road with them and just hanging out and doing. I didn't even know how to shoot video, but they asked me to just, they're like, "It doesn't even matter. We just need behind the scenes footage. The label's going to chop it up anyways." And so that's how I went on tour. And it was awesome. But I mean, if you're talking about honest, genuine people, Push, Malice, like, and I just want to correct something that was said earlier. I played and opened up for Pharrell because I was playing guitar for Malice. It wasn't like my band had like done anything crazy, but yeah, no, but it was cool. Like Pharrell's mom, like just weird side note, was my librarian at Great Neck Middle, and at the time he wasn't Pharrell yet. Like
Yeah.
I remember it was like the first or second week of school where they kind of give orientation, and his mom was like telling us how to use the library. She goes, "By the way, my son Pharrell, he's gonna be on MTV soon, blah blah blah, all this stuff." And
Wow.
I thought he'd won a contest. And then or a couple of days later, in the morning, getting ready for school, I watched Pastor Cavassier, and I was like, "That's Miss Williams' son." Like they looked almost identical, and it was kind of wild. But yeah.
Wow. That's an amazing story, and what an experience, man. Like I can't even imagine being in college and traveling around with, one of the dopest rap groups of all time, honestly, like, from your hometown. Yeah. And then to just kind of have that personal relationship with them is really dope. And man, I want to thank you. We got to get out of here. We've been talking for a long time. We could talk for so much longer. No, bro, there's no need to apologize. But I definitely think that we need to do this again at some point where we can get into some more. But again, man, I really want to thank you for coming on and sharing, your thoughts on music, the music that you create, the music that you've been around. I think all of it is important for people to understand how dope and how deep Richmond's and Virginia's history is as far as music goes.
I wish we could have talked about Richmond's history with stuff, man. Richmond has so much music. We'll get into it next time.
I promise. Next time we're gonna have to do this again. But everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Check out Tunan Vu's music. It is streaming everywhere. His latest release, Listen Katrina, 4-song EP is out. He's working on some new music, so we'll definitely let you know when that's dropping. Tunan, man, thank you so much. I hope we can meet in person soon, man. Invite me to Whiskey Club and all the,
Dude, come through. Come through.
All right, man. I'll hit you up next time I'm in Nova, bro.
Yeah, no doubt.
Or I guess in Maryland.
Well, no, this is in Nova. You're right. You're right for that one.
Okay. All right. We'll get it right. I'll have you text me the details, man. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Check out HearRVA.com for all the latest releases. Peace out. Love everybody. Thank you again. Peace.